Hello, welcome back to my channel. Hi, so it is a Thursday morning here, and I just finished folding laundry. And what do you do after you finish folding laundry? You talk about books. So I got three. I'm so used to the whole 3 book system. I have 2 books here, and both of these books are short books. One of them, in fact, is a short story. But it also contains an afterword and also introduction, which I read, by the way. Big mistake. Okay, not that big, but it was still a mistake. But anyway, I'll get to that later. So this one is The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. I've been meaning to read this short story for a very long time. I know that it is a classic, it's a feminist classic, very well known. I've known about it since I started university, and I think I also own at least like two short story collections that contain this short story, but for some reason I have not read this short story. And so one day I saw at a bookstore, a used bookstore, I saw this book and it was on sale for like 5 ringgit, and I was like, 5 ringgit. Of course I have to get it. So yeah, finally I finished reading this book. So what is this book about? It is about this woman. This short story was published in 1892, and it's about this woman who moves to a house with her physician husband to a house located at a somewhat of a rural area. And apparently this woman is experiencing some kind of illness, which we know today as postpartum depression, but it was not known at the time. But she was not really well physically, mentally, or emotionally, and so as per her physician's husband's advice, this woman is confined to a room in that house, and this room used to be a nursery or a kid's room, apparently. And the husband advises her to do nothing, and by doing nothing, it literally means do nothing whatsoever. And so this woman just kind of finds herself feeling really stifled, being confined in this room. And so while she's at that room, one of the things that catches her attention is this yellow wallpaper, which seems to her a bit strange at first, but eventually this yellow wallpaper will start to take on a more sinister appearance to her. And basically this is what the short story is about. Like, what really is the whole deal with that yellow wallpaper? What is really going on in that room, vis-a-vis the yellow wallpaper, and how it relates to this woman. I got some different thoughts about this short story. Now, I understand why it is a classic. So I read the afterword and also the introduction. The introduction was written by Maggie O'Farrell, and the afterword was by Elaine R. Hedges. And from there you could learn that upon publication of this short story, its first publication, it met with some rather negative or even hostile response from the public. And it is kind of interesting to read, seeing that how people's attitude at that time just kind of clashes with the idea that this short story is trying to put forward. This idea about mental illness, mental health, and how it intersects also with women's experience, especially in relation to their own bodies, their rights to address their grievance concerning their own health, their own mental health, their own bodily conditions, and how their concerns tend to get dismissed and all that. And another aspect of that is also how this short story feels really relevant until today, because those issues still persist in today's world, which makes this short story still, unfortunately, feels very timeless to this day. And so I think it really makes sense that this short story is a classic. It presents an idea that just never seems to go out of fashion, unfortunately. Now, another way that I view this short story is without taking into account the timelessness and also historical context of it, which is, just pretty much how it is written and how I personally feel about it, how I like the writing and all that. And I would say from that aspect, I would probably give it about maybe 3 out of 5 stars. I would say that it presents some really interesting ideas. And I like how these ideas are conveyed through the use of something as simple as a wallpaper, and how that wallpaper is utilized in very creative ways in order to show to highlight whatever there is going on with the main character. And I think the way it does that is just really creative, really fun to read, really interesting. At the same time, there are certain aspects that didn't really jive well with me. Now, one of the things that I noticed is that much of the writing in here, much of the prose appear in like these short paragraphs, 1 sentence paragraphs, maybe like 2 sentence paragraphs, and I would say this does not really feel very effective to me. Although I can see how or why the author chose that stylistic choice to convey the inner turmoil of the main character, and to convey the tense mood of the story, somehow for me it doesn't really work, because instead of feeling that way, I felt that those short paragraphs really made the story feel very quick and brief, and just lacking a certain kind of depth, which I think kind of makes the turmoil that this short story is trying to convey feel a little bit shallow. But I guess that's just me. Now, so that's one thing. Another one is that I feel that this short story is kind of easy in the sense that I didn't really feel challenged so much. Like, a lot of the ideas that it presents. Now, of course, this short story was published in late 19th century, so probably that has something to do with it. But a lot of the ideas that were presented, from my 21st century reader's perspective, I felt that a lot of the ideas for me is just kind of, nothing new. It's everything is just something that I can agree with. The topic doesn't feel challenging. It doesn't offer something fresh for me to think about. And so by the time I reached the end of this short story, I just felt that it was okay. Yeah, I accept it. It was like, okay. Almost felt like a cozy read, idea-wise. And that just didn't feel like a satisfying read to me. The horror aspect also doesn't really feel very horrifying to me. I didn't feel unsettled. But then again, that is, I would say, mostly definitely me, because I find it very difficult to feel unsettled by written words. Yeah, that's probably me. Anyway, yeah, this short story, I would rate it about 3 out of 5 stars. Now, I mentioned that reading the afterword was a bit of a mistake. Now, we all know that afterwards and introduction can spoil plot lines for us, right? But I read the afterwards and introduction after I finished the short story, which is fine. And they contain a lot of plot points about the short story itself. But I read it after I read the short story, so it was okay. But I was quite surprised that the afterward also spoiled the ending of The House of Mirth for me, which I've not read, The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton. And honestly, it's it's not something to be really shocked by, because the afterword also is trying to make connections with other literary works, so of course it makes sense, right? But still, I was slightly disappointed that now I know what happens to the main character in The House of Mirth, which is really dramatic, right? What happened. But now I know about it, so. Although, to be fair, I don't really care so much about, being spoiled anyway, so yeah, at the end of the day, the world has not ended. So yeah, let me know what you think about the Yellow Wallpaper. So, moving on to the next book, I got this one by Amélie Nothomb. This is Thirst. This book was originally written in French. It was translated into English by Alison Anderson, and this book was originally published in the year 2019. Yeah. So, what is Thirst about? It's about Jesus, and I was a little bit surprised by that because, it's Europa edition. When I got this book, it was actually wrapped in plastic, which is annoying. And Europa edition has its description inside the flap, the front flap here. And so I didn't see it when I received this book. It was a gift, by the way, but it was still wrapped in plastic. And it's about Jesus. And more specifically, it's about the moment when Jesus is being sentenced to death and into crucifixion, and the moments, his experience while being crucified and a bit after the crucifixion. But it centers around Jesus, and it's about his inner feelings as so-called the Son of God, but also highlighting very human aspects of Jesus. This book gives us a lot of details about how he really feels about being the Son of God, being able to carry out miracles for people, his true attitude towards his disciples, his mother, according to this book, his lover Mary Magdalene, his birth father, which is something that is also kind of discussed in here. Who does he really consider as his father and all that? And I feel like a lot of the way that Jesus is written in this book is written based on this quite wild invocation of the artistic license, which I think by itself is a very interesting thing to do. Jesus is portrayed as someone who is really human, someone who has a lot of thoughts going in his mind, someone who thinks in ways that occasionally may come across as a mild form of complaining, but at the same time there is also like other kinds of thoughts that he has, which makes him feel very layered in, I would say, surprising ways. And also there is this illusion that the Jesus character in this book also has some kind of prescience. And while reading this book, you would probably notice a bit of anachronistic elements through Jesus' thoughts, because once in a while he would reference things that happened like 2,000 years later. Not specific things, but perhaps like vague hints of what's to come, like how his character is going to be written in the Bible and all that, or like how 2,000 years later people are going to be able to calculate IQ, intelligence quotient and all that. So all of those details just kind of makes certain elements in this book feel a little bit jarring to read. Still, I maintain the opinion that the concept feels interesting. It's just that there are certain parts that feel kind of awkward, and then there are certain parts that probably feel a little bit more substance into them. Like, a lot of it is like Jesus' thoughts and opinions about things, so it can get kind of philosophical at times, but it's not fully supported with, more substance in the form of story and action. Now, I read last year Amélie Nothomb's another book. It's called The Life of Hunger. And I guess you can see where this is going. I thought that book was quite interesting. It's a semi-autobiographical book, and it talks a lot about the concept of hunger and, to an extension, thirst. This book is entitled Thirst. And having read that book, I could see that there is a connection that the author tries to put into this one. Now, this book, the main character is Jesus, and in that book, The Life of Hunger, the main character is a young girl, later young woman named Amélie, which it is semi-autobiographical. And Amélie in that book has some kind of experience with thirst and hunger. And I really feel that the thirst in this book is also very much the thirst that I read about in The Life of Hunger. So it feels like the author is also injecting herself into the character of Jesus. Not making herself the character of Jesus, by the way. I just kind of want to make this distinction. But I just want to point out that she's injecting the characterization that relates to thirst in The Life of Hunger into the character of Jesus in here, essentially making this character of Jesus as feels like a totally new character, by the way. Again, I thought that this is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if it works 100% because of how lean this book feels. I think it would probably work better if we see more action and more plot, but it's just mostly thoughts and all that. So yeah, it didn't work 100% for me, but still, I thought it was interesting. So I give this one 3 out of 5 stars as well. Not the best Nothomb that I've read, but it's Amélie Nothomb. I like her stuff. So yeah, that concludes all of the books that I want to talk about in this video. Let me know if you have read any of these books. Yeah, let me know what you think. And I don't have anything else to say in this video, so I guess I'll see you again in the new one. So until then, take care. Thanks for watching, and bye.